creature of unholy vengeance, born in the heart of a man unjustly condemned to death.
In death I shall be stronger than you in life. I will come back from hell and make you pay for your crimes.
The tree monster. Oh, now, Norgu, I know about cannibalistic flowers, but this tree monster is utterly unbelievable.
Dr. Mason, you are a wise lady. But there are many things even the wisest of us do not know.
Land of superstition, terror, and violent hatred. Where beneath the surface of the Polynesian islands, the earth gives grotesque and terrible birth to a monstrous creature, sworn to kill and torture and destroy.
I beg you, pull up the roots so it will die before it murders everyone.
You know what? I have an eerie feeling that this thing knows what we're saying.
That pulse beat is almost human.
Don't be stingy at a time like this, dearie.
Relentlessly, the baranga pursues its prey. Impervious to destruction by mortal hands, ravaging the world in its madness.
We've got to find her. Let's go back. Come on.
Doc, I never saw anything like this. Those bullets bounce off like BB shot on a stone wall.
The pod bay doors are open. Thank you very much for joining us once again. My name is Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com occasionally, along with my host who has not sworn vengeance upon me from beyond the grave yet. Just a matter of time, really. Jerry Dean Roberts, film critic for ArmchairCinema.com, ArmchairOscars.com, OverThinkingOscars.wordpress.com, as well as a host of YouTube channels. Jerry?
I shall return from hell to make you pay for your crimes.
So,
see, there I did it.
Continuing Turkey Month here.
Month.
I have chosen A Gift of a Terrible movie for my sister-in-law, who said, you should see this. And she was right. I've seen it twice now. It's called From Hell It Came, from 1957.
What dirty sink clog did you pull this out of?
Tubi. Tubi is the dirty sink clog I pulled this out of.
Well, I'm sitting there watching this the other night, and I'm thinking that you have scraped the bottom of the barrel. And that's pretty much what you did, because this movie is just kind of dog shit on the bottom of your shoe.
It's genuinely impressive that Mystery Science Theater 3000 never got a hold of it.
And I was looking at that. I was looking at the first thing I did was go to Riff Tracks. I was like, okay, I've got to see if they've tackled
Regrettably,
this.
no.
They haven't.
Regrettably not. No. This is a very, I think, underseen. Well, not underseen, but unseen. It's more of an obscure picture.
But it's not unknown. I mean,
no.
Critics have reviewed it online.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this thing, and I'd say 75% of it is white people standing around in white shirts in laboratories chit-chatting.
Basically.
If not about the natives outside, about marriage and children.
Marriage and
children.
How
much the men are irritated by the women.
Right.
Because they won't fall in line.
Right. The plague that is on this island that, for what I guess there was a nuclear bomb that went off, and they were testing to see if there was radiation, but they wound up being a plague. There was an atomic
fallout of some kind.
Yeah, there wound up being more of a plague than radiation fallout.
Mm-hmm.
And the Americans are being demonized by the natives as evil. Not really an outside the box objection, because
this movie is the worst statement about colonialism.
Oh man. Not only do they go in and say, well, you're smart enough to go against your superstitions and all of that, they routinely say, well, the natives don't want us to do that. Who cares about them anyway? Literally. Who cares? they're just a couple of natives. I'll risk the medicine man.
Let me put it this way: there are the same amount of natives on this island that there are law-abiding citizens in Death Wish 3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the racism about ignoring the natives is bad. But then when you see the natives and they're all white people in tan makeup.
They're whiter than the scientists.
Seriously. And is it me or does the main guy, what is it, Todd Andrews? He looks like Mitch McConnell waiting to happen, which is not a good look.
No, it's not a good look.
No.
He is an actor that I recognize. He did a lot of television.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those faces you're like, oh, I've seen that guy before. And what's interesting is this is a $5 production. I mean, they threw this together.
Oh, yeah. It's 71 minutes long. Miraculously.
I sat there wondering. It's like, okay, it's not that there's not a plot here. There is a plot in this movie.
And it plots along.
But it talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And I'm sitting there wondering why did you pick this? I'm questioning your choice as to why in the world you picked this.
Then you saw the tree.
Then all of a sudden this very weird mini golf statue gets up and starts ambling across. I mean, it looks like a rejected Muppet.
It looks
some
like
kind of Sid and Marty Krofft thing.
Well, it does. Yeah. Or like Sweetums with stiff person's disorder.
Yeah.
Like once you see it, and the fact that it's got the heartbeat is like a little balloon that's kind of blowing out and in and out and in.
It's a treat. You're looking at, if you're watching this on your computer, you're looking at a picture of it right now. I've posted a picture of it right now.
So there's the son of the chief who died, and they're blaming the Americans for his death when the witch doctor poisoned him. And they're like, oh, well, you're evil because you went to the Americans and you're going to die. So they literally stab him in the heart.
Well, it opens with him being tied to the ground.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's more offensive, the brown makeup or the chickens, but he's staked to the ground. They're putting him to death because supposedly because he murdered his father.
Really, and they just want him out of the way because he's the rightful chief.
But I didn't murder my father. He died of the Black Death.
Yeah.
He died of this plague.
Yep. No,
they don't want to hear that.
It was the medicine that they gave him, knowing full well that they gave him poison.
Right.
Before he went to the Americans. Right. So, all of this is just a big major coup in this tribe of 7 to 10 people. So.
And somewhere in the middle of it is a domestic drama.
Oh man, no, but
among the natives.
Oh. I mean,
because that's what you need.
This is like Peyton Place with the complexity of the relationships, because the chief's son, who is put to death, is murdered to a woman who's sleeping with the guy who wants to be the chief. But once he gets the guy killed, he throws her out and goes with somebody else. And the guy pledges from being staked to the ground before he gets stabbed in the chest that he will come back from the grave as a whatever kind of monster they call it.
Tabanga.
Yeah, Tabanga. And they...
Because Tabanga has its own... Tabanga has its own musical sting.
Right, and it has its own mythos around it for the picture. And so you're like, okay, that's great.
And they bury him upright in what looks like a bamboo outhouse.
Like, okay, vertical burying is something that does happen quite a lot in Eastern Asia and the South Pacific because they just don't have room.
Right.
So that is a thing, but then
I think the Vikings figured this problem out better. Just push him off in a boat and set the boat on fire. I mean,
pretty much,
that's a much more logical.
It takes care of the problem.
Yeah.
So there's that going on with the tribe, and then there's an expert that comes who is, what's his name? Dr. Arnold.
He's the older guy.
No, he's the younger guy. Professor
Okay.
Professor Clark is the older guy that I swear I've seen in stuff too. They call in for a specialist, and the only specialist who can deal with whatever they need is his ex-girlfriend,
Terry Mason.
They are in some sort of an odd, nebulous kind of relationship, right?
May, December kind of thing.
Not even May, not just. I think they dated, and then they broke up, and then they're still kind of together. And he wants to marry her, but she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want kids.
No. He doesn't want to marry her. He wants to shame her into marrying him.
Yes. And don't you want those things like a normal woman? I mean,
don't you want a husband and children like other women?
So yeah, we hit.
Never mind.
We hit the ground running on racism, and then we go headlong into misogyny.
Never mind the years of schooling.
She is a doctor.
Getting her master's degree and getting her doctorate, and going through grad school and all the work and research that she's done. Screw all that, husband and children.
Right. Right. She's like, no, I want to do my work. Now, there is then another misogynistic character who shows up in the form of May Kilgore. She is the widow who is running a trading post there.
Is she the one that he's quote unquote British?
Yeah, she is. She has this awful Cockney accent, and she is hornier than a field full of bulls. If there is even the semblance of testosterone near her, she kind of sniffs and then she goes toward it. And she keeps talking about how she's just horny. And
of course she refers to everyone as dearie.
Yes, and just regularly. She's just after every time she's on screen, which isn't very often. But every time she makes gross, almost assaults on these people. And then she starts saying how all of the natives on the island should be murdered and destroyed because they're bad, they do one thing or another, and she's so racist and horny, and apparently she's just a husband killer.
She's supposed to be the comedy relief in this.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
She's supposed to be the comedy relief in this.
Unfortunately, the tree winds up being the comedy relief. So she's running around doing this, and this old man professor, played by John McNamara, who I swear I've seen him in a bunch of terrible movies.
Yeah, this is a cast where you're like, I know I've seen these people before, and mostly on old TV shows.
Never in a good movie.
Yeah, never in a good movie.
So, you get this other guy who's just basically, he's there to be the objection. So if Dr. Arnold wants to do something, Professor Clark says, no, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
If Dr. Arnold says, no, we shouldn't do this, Professor Clark says, yes, we should.
Yeah.
So they're talking about how a tree stump has somehow grown over this grave.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, where he's buried, I think Chemo is his name, where he is buried, there is a stake in the ground with a skull on it.
Yeah.
It falls over, and where the skull falls over, this tree starts to grow out of the ground. And the face, this hilarious face.
It has a face.
It looks like something from a bad PSA. And it starts to grow.
It looks like something from a Coronet short.
Yeah. The doctor notes it has a heartbeat. It's wood. It's a stump.
It's wood, and and it's an irregular heartbeat, and the heartbeat is illustrated by like basically a balloon blowing up and deflating and blowing up. It's like bursting out of his chest every time it beats.
Yeah.
And eventually it grows into a full-sized, person-sized tree. And
if you want to call it that.
Yeah, right. The people who are organizing the coup are like, I'm going to spread poison around it so it dies. Meanwhile, the white people, who are playing white people, say, we should dig it up. No, we shouldn't. Yes, we should. No, we shouldn't. Let's go dig it up. They don't want us to. Who cares about them? And then they go dig it up.
Is this the point where they set it on fire?
No, that's later. This is only a 70-minute movie, and the fact that there is so much of this.
Well, I love it when the natives get the idea to have it fall in a pit, and they set it on fire, and then they just walk away.
And then it comes back up out of the pit, and they're like, "Oh, help us, Americans! Help us, Americans!" It's like
the look has come crawling back.
Now, the thing about it is, if they just stayed out of its way, he vowed vengeance on 3 people: his wife, the usurper, and the medicine guy.
And the dude who throws a spear at it from 2 feet away and can't hit it.
Oh, yeah, well, and then they start shooting at the knife. We'll get to that. The marksman does not hit the mark.
In more ways than one.
So they dig it up, and they're still marveling that there's a heartbeat. But they still have yet to come to the conclusion that it might be alive.
Yeah.
I don't really know how heartbeat doesn't translate to potentially alive, but
here we are.
It gets up and leaves and goes to exact its vengeance, just because that's what it was there for. Throws one person into quicksand, right?
No, throws the girl into quicksand.
Yeah, the wife into the quicksand.
The tramp.
Yeah. And he's gonna throw Dr. Mason in, too, near the end. But that's only because they were interfering. Like, if they'd have just let him go, he would have just killed the 3 people and gone away. Like, I mean, really, you gotta count you gotta really figure out how you're gonna go about these deathly situations. Like,
do you ever see like connections throughout your day, things that keep popping up? Like all of a sudden, it just weird stuff just seems to connect. Like, for example, I watched this early this morning just to get a refresher. And then I walked through my living room, because when I'm at home, the TV is just on. And Crystal Skull was on. Then when I came back through, Blazing Saddles was on. All of which contain quicksand.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, well, if I had sat down and watched Princess Bride, it would have been an interesting foursome. Yeah. It's just there was no plan to all of this. It just happened.
Yeah.
That these 3 movies just happened to be in my view today.
That's funny.
And yeah.
It's running around, and it is not attacking anybody but the 3 people it said it was going to.
Yeah, it's only going to attack the people important to the plot.
But the usurper, or I think it's the witch doctor at that point, their medicine man, I think is what they call him.
Well, look, you have to try to be killed by this monster.
Because
there's
all he
one
really
dude
does
gets
is
killed.
Just kind of run into him, and then they die.
I think he gets crushed between this thing and another tree. And crushed is a hard word.
I'm sorry in advance. It gives new meaning to lumbering.
Yes.
This is, incidentally, where Stan Lee got the inspiration for Groot.
Allegedly. That's the rumor anyway.
No, he said outright, I watched this movie and I got this. That's how I understand it.
I can't imagine anybody watching this.
Remember,
my question is, did he see it as a kid or did he see it?
Well, it came out.
If he saw
it came out in 1957, so no, he was not a kid.
He was not a kid. Okay. So
he
by now you can see.
He probably just went to the movies in the afternoon and it was on the bill.
Or it was on television.
Yeah.
At some point. Because this is the kind of movie that in 1957 you're a teenager and you've got a 1957 Plymouth Belvedere.
And this is absolutely first on the double feature.
You pick up your girl and you take her to the drive-in. When the monster shows up, you're watching the movie. But when the scientists start talking,
no.
tonsil hockey.
Yeah. Or it was
you're making out a lot during this movie.
It was a Saturday afternoon matinee. He had time to kill. This was on the bill, along with like 6 cartoons, 3 newsreels,
and another movie.
That
was just as bad as this.
Probably, yeah, probably. But yeah, this is double bill. It just cries out to be seen with another terrible movie.
Were you kind of alarmed when you first sat down to watch this that there's a prologue? Because honestly, I watched this on Tubi. And when I sat down to watch this, I kept going back because I started the movie and it looked like it was starting in the middle.
Yeah.
Because it starts cold.
It does.
With the scientists. And then they're sitting around talking about nothing. And then all of a sudden it goes into the credit sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not put together well.
Well, that's not the usual thing with these movies. The usual thing is if it starts like this, usually it's a violent action scene.
Yeah.
Then it'll go into credits. But this starts with just dialogue.
Yeah, just talking. I mean, 90% of this is exposition. There is literally 2 scenes where it was start to finish exposition, like nothing else in the scene.
And you don't want to ask questions like how these scientists on this island brought a gas stove.
Yeah.
And where did they hook it up?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are women on the team, so you got to have a stove.
Well, you've got to have somewhere to put them, right?
I guess that was the thinking there.
Yeah, yeah, you got to have somewhere to put them, so you got to get a stove. So.
My question is, it's the Gas King. Does it have the little drawer under Does it have a little drawer under it so she can soak her feet while she's cooking and standing in front of it all day?
You know what the worst?
Futurama.
The worst thing about this, and I just discovered this. The director is Dan Milner. He directed some total of 3 movies, this being the last one. Do you know what his primary function was?
What's his primary function?
He was a film editor.
That surprises me not even a bit.
Well, the bad editing in the movie does surprise me. But yeah, he started editing in the 30s. There is a movie
here.
Yeah.
I'll say that. There is a movie here. It's terrible. It's mostly just... Well, first of all, the cast is made up entirely of white people.
Yeah, entirely.
Which I kept wondering, were the natives doing some kind of long con on the scientists? They're actually white people, but it's...
Now that's a movie I would watch.
Yeah, that's a movie right there.
That's your movie. But yeah, the tree is just literally, and I hate to say it again because it's a terrible pun, but lumbering is
and the actor inside the costume is having a lot of trouble walking around in this thing.
Yes, it's a Godzilla suit. It is not.
You have to work to get killed by it. It's kind of like, what is that Mystery Science Theater did I think it's The Crawling Terror, or something like that.
The Creeping Terror.
The Creeping Terror, where it's a giant worm,
Mm-hmm.
and the actor has to crawl inside of it to be eaten by it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. It's
Although you have to be crushed by this thing because it doesn't open its mouth.
right. All it does is just kind of lean on you and count and count on you to pass out from fear, and then it picks you up and throws you somewhere.
Well, and then and then there's that guy. There's that one native guy that he crushes against another tree.
And that just, I mean, hey, you gotta give him points for creativity. There are 500 different ways he could
get out of this.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that the tree catches anyone is just, I mean, people complained about the chase scenes in Obi-Wan Kenobi with Leia. Look, this is even worse.
That ain't nothing compared to this.
No.
Well, this has about a $5 production budget.
Mm-hmm.
How much did Obi-Wan have?
Oh,
millions.
Probably 25, 30, 50 million.
So I lay it on Obi-Wan to have gotten that right. I don't lay it on this one to have gotten it right because, they wanted to finish this thing in what, 3-4 days?
Yeah.
And, finish this thing in 3-4 days. Get it done, in a budget of, about $500. Yeah.
Yeah,
But one thing I wanted to talk about is in 1957.
Yeah.
And nearly, well, I won't say all, but a lot of these movies had to do with atomic fallout.
Mm-hmm.
Because the atomic bomb somehow created this entire genre of monster movies, including Godzilla. In which some mutation just pops up out of the ground. And...
Right. Kong is the only naturally occurring kaiju, I think.
You think? Yeah. Kong was just there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's the only naturally occurring kaiju that doesn't have a radioactive tint to him.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some Kong movie where he has atomic something.
They made a lot of bad Kong movies that had the name Kong in it.
I think I've seen like 4 of them. I've seen the original, of course, with Peter Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I did see the one that was made, the original Son of Kong.
Yeah.
Which actually was made the same year as King Kong, and I mean they pushed it out quickly and with no fuss, no muss. They just banged that thing out.
It wasn't even the same makers, was it? It wasn't Marion C. Cooper that did it. No. But
they just banged that thing out before the year was over.
Yeah.
Just like Breaking.
Yeah. The one thing, like I've seen a bunch of them, and I've also seen like the new ones, and there was one that was directed by Ishiro Honda called King Kong Escapes, and that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Which one was the one in the 80s? The Dino De Laurentiis one.
Oh. I know there was the one in 76 with Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, because that was the film debut of Jessica Lange.
Yeah.
I know. It's called King Kong Lives.
Yeah.
And they advertised that thing, I mean, up one side and down the other. And give it to that film, it has Kong getting heart surgery, a heart transplant, which is kind of hilarious.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
I mean, I don't have any more to say about it. That's why we're on Kong, because I think we've tapped out.
Well, look, I
I
chose this because I needed you to see it, because I saw it and I needed to
hope that
share the
anybody
horror.
watching this has already seen the movie before you listen to this, because I want people to experience it the way I did. I went in cold, and I didn't know anything at all about it.
All I knew was Murderer's Tree Stump.
All I knew
And that's what sold me, honestly.
I knew barely anything about it, and I sat down and I watched it, and I'm watching really offensive Pacific Islander stereotypes matched with a message about a really bad message about white colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, in the middle of that, out of that comes the most hilarious monster I think I've ever seen. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I think I said out loud, "Okay, now I know why you think this."
You saw the thing walking, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
But I want to tell you that what I want people to do is I want people to go into next week's film completely cold. Because next week's film falls into the realm of fascinating.
Yeah, I might actually, because my wife works Thanksgiving, so I'll be just kind of sitting watching movies quiet in the dark while she sleeps to get ready. And I always do on Thanksgiving. I celebrate Turkey Day with Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks. So I may, because it'll be a genuine turkey, watch this on Thursday.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to give you a heads up. I would like for you to go in cold. I would like our listeners to go in cold. But if you don't want to go in cold, I'm going to describe what this movie is, because I can't resist it.
I already know a basic plot outline.
This is a Lifetime movie. Okay, I'm giving you a fair warning. Turn it off if you don't want to hear it.
Hey, you just said all you needed to say. It's a Lifetime movie. That's all you need to say.
Okay, I'll shut up then.
You can get what quality it is, just from that statement alone.
It's a Lifetime movie. But it's not like your typical Lifetime movie.
It doesn't have Meredith Baxter Birney in it.
There's not a sexual assault. There's not a substance abuse problem. There's not any of that. It's not your standard. But it's got a plot that is so bizarre that you're sitting there going, "What?" Yeah, it's. I won't spoil it. Okay, I'm not gonna spoil it. I won't say anything.
But the picture is called Invisible Child.
Not Invisible Kid, Invisible Child.
Invisible Child. So, figure that one out on your own.
And I am biting my lip.
Listen, I'm looking forward to watching it in the way that I always look forward to watching bad movies, is that I know I'm going to absolutely have a great time laughing at it, but at the same time, I still have to watch it.
Yeah.
So I think that about wraps it up here for us. We thank you very much.
We don't have our usuals. All of our usual pages are gone down or have gone away. I'm not using Twitter anymore. I'm actually thinking seriously about moving over to Blue Sky.
I already have Blue Sky, and I'm building followers so that I can just kill my
things like Twitter
accounts.
and Blue Sky. Things like Twitter and Blue Sky are forcing me into brevity, and I don't want that. So
don't go to TikTok then.
Okay, so I'll advertise myself if you want. We're here. You're here on our YouTube channel, Pod Bay Doors, I also have a couple of other YouTube channels. I have my Armchair Cinema, and also I'm putting together a channel to collect all of Siskel and Ebert's episodes. It's called The Misadventures of Siskel and Ebert. Go and check that out. That's where I am. And of course, I have my site, armchaircinema.com. So.
Yeah, and I'm eventually coming back into myself, so I will probably start writing at some point to actually make the site like worth still having. But so that's kind of where we are now. Hit the like, subscribe, notifications, tell your friends. Greatly appreciate
your
it.
enemies.
Yes. If you have any suggestions, we will happily take them. We may not necessarily do them, but we will be happy to take them.
If we get enough, we'll do a month on it.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So, we thank you very much for joining us, and the pod bay doors are now closed.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
There is unrest in the forest, there is trouble with the trees. For the maples want more sunlight and the oaks ignore their pleas.